The sky above the Empire's command ship was calm, but inside the control room, everyone moved with quiet tension. Commander Roll stood in the center, his eyes fixed on the giant screen showing Sector 9. The enemy fleet had been sighted 10 minutes ago. 7,000 warships, enough power to crush 3 planets in one attack. For days, the Empire believed that this battle could change everything. So every soldier waited for the moment the enemy would enter firing range. But something strange happened. The enemy ships stopped moving. They formed a wide circle as if they were scared of something. Nobody understood why. A young officer named Lyra checked the scanners again, her voice slightly shaking. She told Commander Rawl that the enemy fleet had not fired a single shot. They were simply floating, almost frozen in space. Rawl felt something was wrong. The enemy was known for aggressive attacks, never for fear or hesitation. Something had spooked them, something powerful enough to make thousands of experienced soldiers freeze. Before he could give another order, the lights in the control room flickered, and every screen flashed white for half a second. The sound was like a low whisper, almost like something alive had passed through the ship. Then Sector 9 reappeared on the screen empty. The enemy fleet was gone, not destroyed, not broken apart, not scattered, which is gone, as if it never existed. Every ship, every fighter, every signal had disappeared. The control room fell into dead silence. Lyra's fingers hovered over her console. She stopped breathing for a moment. Rawl ordered the scanners to refresh. Nothing changed. Only quiet space remained. The enemy armada had been erased in less than a second. Rawl's voice cracked slightly as he asked for the battle logs. The system replayed the last recorded moment. A bright white flash, followed by static. No explosion, no weapon signature, no debris, no trace of life. It looked less like an attack and more like the universe deleted part of itself. A cold shiver went through everyone in the room. Rawl whispered that no known technology in the galaxy had this kind of power. The Empire had records dating back thousands of years. Weapons, species, anomalies, natural disasters, everything was recorded. But this was something new, something terrifying. A strange energy signature suddenly appeared on the lower part of the screen. Faint, soft, almost like a heartbeat. But it wasn't from the enemy fleet. It was coming from the center of the disappearance zone. Lyra amplified the signal. The energy felt warm, like a pulse, like something alive. Confused and scared, the crew stared at the reading. Rawl decided to send a research vessel to collect information. He needed answers fast. Before panic spread through the Empire, the research vessel arrived at the location where the enemy armada vanished. The area was filled with a gentle glowing dust floating like tiny stars. The scientists collected samples and reported back something even more strange. The dust emitted emotional waves. When one scientist touched the sample, he felt sadness and fear, so strong that he stepped back and trembled. It felt like the dust was crying. The Empire had never encountered living energy before. Rawl's worry grew deeper. The disappearance of thousands of ships was already a massive problem, but this emotional energy made it even more mysterious. Lyra ran another test and discovered another shocking detail. The energy was not from any ship or weapon. It came from a single pointer, small, concentrated source. Whatever caused the destruction was not a fleet, not a machine, not an army. It was one thing, one unknown thing. That night, reports spread across the Empire. Soldiers whispered that a ghost weapon had awakened. Scientists argued that it might be an ancient power. Some believed it was a new species, but no one had answers, and fear began to grow in every corner of the Empire. The next day, a deep space patrol ship sent a sudden distress signal. Their last message said they were being followed by a strange light. The communication ended with static. When the Empire checked their position, they found the patrol ship but no signs of attack. The ship floated calmly, untouched, but the crew inside looked pale and shaken. They said a glowing figure had appeared outside their window, a small humanoid shape made of pure energy, watching them with sad eyes. It didn't speak, but they felt its emotions directly. It was scared and alone. The crew described it like a child lost in space. The Empire immediately labeled it Subject Zero. Roll realized this new being might be connected to the destruction of the enemy fleet. If a frightened, childlike entity had erased 7,000 warships, then the galaxy was facing something far more powerful and unpredictable than any enemy they had ever known. Rawl felt a heavy weight settle on his chest. If Zero acted on fear, what would happen if something made it angry? As the Empire prepared to study Subject Zero, a silent dread filled the command room. Rawl looked at the stars outside the window and whispered to himself that the universe had changed. Something new had arrived, something without records, something the Empire did not understand. And whatever it was, it had already shown its power. The Empire moved quickly after the first encounter with Subject Zero. Fear was spreading silently, like a shadow crawling through every hallway of the command ship. Commander Roll stood beside the observation window, staring at the stars while thinking about the glowing figure the patrol team described. He wondered how something so small could carry such impossible power. The destruction of 7,000 warships still replayed in his mind like a nightmare he couldn't escape. Yet, no matter how hard he tried to understand, nothing made sense. Lyra approached him with a report tablet in her hand. Her face looked tired, but her eyes still held sharp determination. She explained that the research vessel had returned from Sector 9 with more samples of the glowing dust. Scientists noticed that the dust reacted to emotions. When someone felt fear, the particles darkened. When someone felt sadness, they turned blue. And when someone tried to remain calm, the dust produced a soft, warm light. The energy seemed to mirror human feelings, almost like it understood them. Rahl felt uneasy hearing that. Weapons were predictable, but emotions were not. A being that reacted to emotions could become extremely dangerous if frightened. Lyra added that the scientists believed the dust was a leftover trace from Subject Zero, like shedding from a living energy being. That meant Zero had been at the center of the enemy fleet's destruction. Rahl already feared this, but hearing the confirmation made his stomach twist. The Empire needed answers. So Rahl ordered a team of elite researchers, security officers, and diplomats to prepare for a direct encounter. Nobody wanted to approach Zero, but Rahl insisted. Avoiding it would only make the situation worse. If Zero returned in panic, a whole planet could vanish in a second. Understanding the entity was the only hope they had. Meanwhile, far away from the Empire's main ship, a small scout vessel drifted carefully through a quiet region of space. The crew on board suddenly picked up a faint shimmer on their radar, a soft pulse of light moving slowly through the darkness. The captain ordered the ship to slow down. All of them stared through the viewing window, breath held in fear. The shimmer grew brighter, forming a shape small, almost like a child floating in space. The crew froze. It was Subject Zero again. The entity did not attack. It simply floated toward them, glowing weakly, as if tired. The crew felt a gentle wave of emotion wash over them. This time it wasn't fear. It was loneliness. Deep, heavy loneliness, like someone who had been wandering for years without finding anyone to trust. One of the crew whispered that Zero didn't feel like a monster. It felt like something looking for help. The captain reported this back to Commander Roll immediately. When Roll received the message, he felt a shift inside him. Maybe Zero wasn't a threat by choice. Maybe it was only reacting to fear and danger around it. If this was true, then the Empire had one chance to approach it without weapons ready, without aggression, without showing fear. Even if fear was the natural reaction to such a powerful being. The research and security team loaded into a shuttle and prepared for departure. Their mission was simple but dangerous. Approach Subject Zero calmly and attempt peaceful contact. Nobody knew what would happen if Zero sensed fear or confusion. Some officers wore emotional stabilizers, small devices that helped control heart rate and stress. Their hands shook even while fastening their equipment. Lyra joined the team as well, her face calm but her heart beat loud in her ears. She believed that understanding Zero was the key to saving their empire. If they failed, she feared the consequences would be unimaginable. As the shuttle launched, an uneasy silence filled the interior. Each member felt the pressure of their mission. Outside the window, space flowed past them in a soft blur of stars. They soon reached the last known coordinates of Subject Zero. The scanners detected the same energy pulse, soft but unstable, like a flame flickering in the wind. When the shuttle moved closer, the crew saw Zero floating peacefully, its body dimly glowing with pale blue light. It seemed weaker than before, almost fading. The emotion that hit the team this time was not loneliness. It was fear, sharp and urgent. Zero was scared of something nearby. The crew watched carefully, trying not to panic. A few seconds later, their scanners picked up another signal, a small asteroid drifting toward Zero at high speed. Zero didn't move. It simply stared at the rock, trembling. The shuttle moved closer to study the strange vessel, and the lights inside the abandoned ship flickered weakly. A soft pulse of energy reached Zero, and the being shivered in response. Lyra felt a rush of emotions from Zero, a mix of recognition, sadness, and fear. It was like Zero knew the ship, like it had seen it before. Maybe it was its birthplace, maybe it was a prison. Or maybe it was the last remnant of something long lost. The ancient ship suddenly sent out a low signal. It wasn't an attack. It was a cry, almost like a forgotten recording begging to be heard. The crew activated their receivers, and a fragmented voice filled the shuttle. It wasn't in any known language. The voice sounded old, tired, and broken, like someone calling out from centuries ago. As the audio played, Zero's glow dimmed and pulsed in rhythm with the voice, as if it understood every word. The voice faded into static. The crew looked at Zero, waiting for a reaction. Zero slowly drifted toward the ancient ship, its small hand reaching out. But before it could touch the surface, a sudden violent energy surge burst from the ship, sending the shuttle spinning. Zero flew back, glowing bright white like a startled burst of flame. The ancient ship began to crumble, its hull breaking apart like dry ash. But where most debris would scatter, this ship did something unnatural. It dissolved into glowing particles that drifted toward Zero, drawn like dust toward a star. Zero panicked, sending frantic emotions through the crew's minds. The particles swirled around the entity, forming a ring of light. Zero's glow fluctuated wildly, and the space around it began to distort. Lyra shouted for shields. The shuttle's systems strained under the pressure. The crew tried to reach Zero, begging it to stay calm. Slowly, the distortion faded. The glowing particles settled into Zero's body, and the entity floated still. The violent shaking stopped. The space returned to normal. Zero looked changed. Its glow was stronger, richer, and deeper than before. It felt older now, like a part of its forgotten past had returned. The crew sensed new emotions: confusion, grief, and a heavy sadness. Zero remembered something painful. Commander Roll ordered the shuttle to return immediately. The Empire needed to examine Zero's new condition. But as the shuttle prepared to leave, something unexpected happened. Zero reached out again, sending one last vision: an image of a massive dark shape in the distance. Something far bigger than the ancient ship. Something coming. The crew felt a chill run through them. Zero was afraid again, but this time not of the Empire. It was afraid of something else in the galaxies, something moving toward them, and the Empire had no idea what it was. The shuttle returned to the Empire's main command ship, with Subject Zero quietly floating beside it. Zero's glow had changed since merging with the ancient particles. It was brighter, heavier, and carried a strange sadness that the crew could feel even without any words. When the shuttle doors opened, scientists and guards stood ready, unsure whether they should treat Zero as a guest or a threat. Zero drifted inside slowly, looking around with innocent curiosity, but every movement felt cautious, almost shy, as if it feared causing damage again. Commander Roll stepped forward. He did not raise weapons or shout commands. He simply nodded to the glowing being, and Zero answered with a soft wave of calm that washed over everyone in the room. For a moment, all the fear in the hall disappeared. That gentle warmth from Zero reminded Roll that the entity was not a monster. It felt more like a lonely child trying its best to understand a world that feared it. Zero settled in the center of the research chamber while the scientists set up their instruments. They had to be careful. Even the smallest emotional spike from Zero could disrupt their equipment. Lyra stayed close, acting as a comforting presence. Zero trusted her more than anyone else. The crew believed that was because Lyra spoke softly, never letting fear guide her actions. She treated Zero like a scared living being, not a weapon. The scientists began their scans. Strange readings appeared instantly. Zero's energy frequency had changed since the ancient ship dissolved into it. The new readings suggested the particles were coded with memories that were now part of Zero. Lyra watched as Zero closed its eyes, and the room filled with a gentle hum. Then a vision hit everyone in the chamber like a wave. It wasn't painful, but it was strong and clear. They saw an enormous dark chamber, filled with glowing pods. In the vision, Zero was small, surrounded by light, floating inside one of those pods. Other shapes, similar energy beings, floated nearby, but their glows were fading. One by one, the lights dimmed, leaving Zero alone in the darkness. The feeling was crushing. The weight of loneliness, fear, and abandonment hit every person watching. The vision faded, leaving the room silent except for the soft sound of someone trying not to cry. Zero opened its eyes, dim and trembling. Lyra stepped forward gently, telling the frightened being that they understood. Zero's glow brightened slightly, comforted by her voice. The scientists exchanged worried glances. They realized something critical. Zero had once belonged to a group of beings, maybe even a species, but something had wiped them out. The ancient ship may have been the last trace of them. Commander Roll stepped closer, speaking with a steady voice. He asked Zero what destroyed its kind. The being shivered, and the lights flickered in the room. Emotions poured from it: fear, urgency, darkness approaching. The scientists quickly checked the energy response. Zero was terrified, not of the Empire, but of something else, something coming from the distant galaxy. The lights steadied, and Zero sent another short vision. This time it was only an image, a massive shadow stretching across stars, like a black wave swallowing light. The vision carried no shape, no form, just endless darkness and hunger. The room fell into silence. Lyra felt her heart tighten. She looked at Roll and whispered that whatever destroyed Zero's world might be coming for theirs too. Before anyone could react, alarms blared in the command area. A messenger rushed in with urgent updates. A distant outpost had detected unusual energy patterns approaching from deep space, patterns identical to the ones found in Zero's memories. Roll's eyes narrowed. This was no coincidence. The threat Zero feared was real, and it was getting closer. Some officers panicked. They accused Zero of bringing danger to the Empire. They said Zero should be locked away or destroyed before the unknown enemy arrived. Their fear spread fast, infecting the room like poison. Zero sensed it. Its glow flickered, and the pressure in the air thickened. The lights dimmed as Zero trembled, overwhelmed by the rising fear around it. Lyra raised her voice sharply, ordering everyone to calm down. She told them Zero was scared too and needed kindness, not weapons. Slowly, the panic in the room settled. Zero's glow softened again, and the pressure faded. Roll watched Lyra quietly. He realized she had become the bridge between their world and Zero's. Without her, the Empire would have already made a fatal mistake. Raul made a decision. He declared that Zero was now under the Empire's protection, not its control. He assigned Lyra as Zero's official guardian, at least until they understood more about the incoming threat. The officers in the room hesitated but obeyed. Raul's authority carried weight, and deep down they knew attacking Zero would be suicide. Zero drifted toward Lyra, glowing gently. An emotion filled the room, gratitude, soft and warm. For the first time it felt like Zero wasn't alone anymore. But beneath that warmth, there was still fear. Zero had shown them the enemy that destroyed its kind, and now that enemy was approaching the Empire. The scientists looked at the data again and again, but nothing eased their worry. The Empire was not prepared for something capable of wiping out an entire species of energy beings. Zero floated quietly, watching them with sad, glowing eyes. It knew something terrible was coming, and the Empire, for the first time in centuries, felt truly small. The Empire's command ship drifted through the quiet space near the border sector, but inside, nothing felt quiet anymore. Rumors spread fast among the crew. Everyone whispered about the dark wave coming from deep space. Everyone whispered about Subject Zero. Some were scared of it, some pitied it, some believed it was a warning sent by fate. Only Lyra stayed calm. She walked beside Zero through the long metal halls, guiding it gently so the being wouldn't feel alone. Zero floated close to her, glowing faintly. Its energy was weak, like a candle fighting to stay alive in the wind. Lyra spoke softly, telling stories from her home planets, more stories about simple things like gardens, soft winds, and little birds that could sing without pause. She didn't know if Zero understood all the words, but the being listened. Every time she talked, its glow warmed, just a little. The Empire prepared for war. Ships were being moved, shields tested, weapons charged. Scientists checked the data, again and again to understand the new threat, but every answer only created more questions. The dark wave had no shape, no heat, no signal. It was like something swallowing space itself. Commander Raul stood in the main control chamber, watching the data screens in silence. His jaw was tight with worry. He had led wars before. He had seen monsters, empires fall, stars burn out, but he had never seen anything like this. The captain shouted to activate shields before the collision could harm the entity. The shuttle moved between Zero and the asteroid, blocking the impact. A heavy thud echoed through the ship as the rock hit the shield. Zero stared at them, its body glowing brighter, filled with sudden surprise and confusion. Then a gentle wave of warmth washed over the crew. It was gratitude. Zero understood. For the first time, someone had protected it instead of attacking it. Its glow shifted to a warm white, calming the crew instantly. Subject Zero drifted closer to the shuttle, stretching out a small glowing hand. Lyra stepped forward, heart pounding, but she did not feel fear anymore. She felt something sad and innocent in the entity's presence. Raul watched everything from the command center. When he saw the glowing figure touch the shuttle gently, he whispered a soft hope to himself. Maybe this was the first step to solving a mystery that had shaken the entire Empire. But deep in his mind, he also feared something else. If Zero was this powerful when afraid, what kind of force would it unleash if someone tried to harm it? Again, the Empire was beginning to understand Zero, but understanding did not mean they were safe yet. Subject Zero stayed beside the shuttle like a small star floating in darkness. Its soft glow reflected gently against the metal surface, and for a moment the crew felt peace instead of fear. Lyra stared at the being through the glass window, trying to understand what it truly was. It looked fragile, almost too delicate for the power it carried. The crew spoke in low whispers, unsure if Zero could understand their language, but they could clearly feel its emotions. It felt like warmth touching their hearts, like a child trying to trust strangers. Commander Raul watched the scene from the command center, his hands clasped tightly behind his back. He felt relief seeing Zero calm, but the tension in his chest did not fade. He knew this peace could break at any moment. A being capable of erasing thousands of warships in an instant could not be treated like a normal life form. The Empire needed to be smart, patient, and careful with every step. The shuttle crew slowly opened their communication channel, sending a soft signal toward Zero. They hoped the entity would understand their attempt at peaceful contact. Zero tilted its glowing head, its body shimmering like waves of light moving through water. It reached out a small hand and pressed it gently against the outer glass of the shuttle. The crew felt a warm wave of reassurance wash over them. Zero was not trying to attack it, wanted to communicate. Lyra activated a translator device, even though she knew it probably wouldn't work. Zero did not speak in words but in emotions. Still, she wanted to give it a sense of normal communication, something predictable and human. She spoke slowly and softly, introducing herself and explaining they meant no harm. The translator produced calm tones, echoing her message outward. Zero reacted with curiosity. Its body glowed slightly brighter, and for a moment, the shuttle lights flickered gently as if the entity's energy brushed through the entire ship. It didn't feel threatening. It felt like a quiet handshake between two different worlds. Lyra felt a sudden image appear in her mind, a blurry vision of a dark void with no stars, where Zero floated alone. The emotion carried with the vision was heartbreaking loneliness. Zero had been alone for a long time, maybe since the moment it was created. The crew exchanged nervous glances when they realized Zero could share visions. This kind of telepathic communication was incredibly rare and extremely dangerous if uncontrolled. But Zero shared only gentle emotions, not forceful ones. It wanted them to understand its story, little by little. Suddenly, the radar beeped sharply, breaking the quiet connection. A fast-moving object was approaching the area. Lyra checked the scanner and other Empire ship. But this was not a research vessel or a peaceful patrol. It was a heavy combat cruiser, known for strict orders and aggressive defense protocols. Commander Roll's heart tightened. He had not sent this cruiser. Someone else in the Empire had made a dangerous decision. The cruiser sent a coded message directly to the shuttle. "Stand back, we are taking custody of the entity." Before Lyra could reply, Zero sensed something. Its glow dimmed and then flickered rapidly, like a trembling flame. Fear spread through the creature, and the crew felt it instantly. Zero drifted backward, curling its glowing arms protectively around its small body. Sparks of unstable light rippled through it, warning of a possible outburst. The crew shouted into the radio, begging the cruiser to stop, but the approaching ship ignored their warnings. The cruiser turned on its containment beams, bright red lights meant for capturing dangerous life forms. Subject Zero shook violently. Fear washed over the crew with overwhelming force, nearly knocking some of them to their knees. Lyra slammed her hand against the communication panel, screaming that Zero must not be threatened. But the cruiser moved closer, and the containment beams activated fully. Zero let out a silent, emotional scream. A shockwave of pure energy burst from its body. The shuttle shook violently as alarms blared. The cruiser's red beams shattered like glass hit by a hammer. Its engines flickered, its lights died, and the thick hull groaned under the invisible pressure. The cruiser spun helplessly, like a toy thrown by an angry child. But Zero did not destroy it. The energy burst stopped abruptly, as if Zero forced itself to hold back. The being curled even tighter, glowing dimly like a fading spark. Its fear and sadness washed over the crew like a cold wind. It had not wanted to hurt anyone, it had simply reacted. The cruiser floated powerless, no longer a threat. Commander Roll's voice filled the shuttle speakers, heavy and urgent. He ordered the cruiser's commander removed from duty and demanded all ships stand down immediately. This reckless action nearly triggered a galactic disaster. One wrong move, one moment of fear, and Zero could have destroyed the entire fleet without meaning to. Lyra carefully approached Zero again, her voice trembling but calm. She told the little being that they were not leaving, that they were still here to help. Zero's glow steadied a little, no longer frantic. It drifted slowly toward the shuttle once more, pressing its tiny hand against the glass. Seeking reassurance, the crew felt a soft wave of trust return to them. Zero wanted connection, it wanted safety, it wanted understanding, but Raal knew something had changed. The Empire would not all agree on how to handle this entity. Some would want to protect it, others would want to control it, and some, he feared, would want to destroy it before it grew more powerful. As Zero floated peacefully beside the shuttle, unaware of the political storm forming around it, Raal whispered to himself that this was only the beginning. The real conflict had just started. The Empire's main command ship felt heavier than ever as Commander Roll walked through its long metallic corridor. Every officer he passed looked tense, whispering about the incident with the combat cruiser. News had spread fast. Subject Zero had released a shockwave powerful enough to shut down a war-class ship without even trying. Many were scared. Some officers demanded Zero be captured immediately. Others whispered that it should be destroyed before it became unstoppable. Raal knew the fear was natural, but fear was exactly what could cause disaster. Zero had clearly reacted to danger, not aggression. If more ships provoked it, the results could be far worse. In the research wing, scientists studied the glowing dust collected earlier. The particles reacted to every emotional shift inside the room. When a nervous technician dropped a tool, the dust flickered in a sudden burst of red. When someone calmed down, it settled back into a soft blue glow. The scientists were fascinated but worried. Subject Zero was more than energy, it was a living being tied deeply to emotions. Anything that scared or hurt it could trigger destructive power far beyond their control. Meanwhile, Lyra and her shuttle crew stayed close to Zero, drifting slowly through the quiet region of space. Zero followed them like a small star, glowing brighter now that it felt somewhat safe again. It moved with slow, curious motions, exploring the exterior of the shuttle and occasionally sending soft images into the crew's minds, simple visions of darkness, fear, and searching. The crew realized Zero was showing them pieces of its memories. It had spent a long time alone before being found. The calm did not last long. A sudden alert flashed through the shuttle, and the crew saw the reason immediately. A huge metallic shadow passed above them. It was not an Empire ship. It was something far older, with strange symbols carved across its dark hull. The vessel looked abandoned, like a grave drifting in space, but it emitted a faint energy signal similar to Zero's. Lyra stared at it with wide eyes. The design did not match any known Empire record. It looked like a relic from a forgotten civilization. Subject Zero sensed something to its glow, flickered anxiously, and it drifted closer to the shuttle, hiding behind it like a frightened child hiding behind a parent. The crew felt a sudden wave of fear from the entity. Whatever this ancient ship was, Zero knew it. Commander Roll, watching from the main ship, demanded more scans. The results came back quickly. The ship was powered by the same type of unknown energy that surrounded Zero, though much weaker. It was like finding a broken lantern next to a burning star. Zero sensed the tension everywhere. It drifted quietly beside Lyra as they entered the observation dome, a large glass sphere overlooking the stars. Zero gazed outside, glowing with a soft sadness. Lyra watched the being for a long moment before asking gently why the darkness destroyed its kind. Zero turned slowly toward her. The lights in the dome flickered, and suddenly a wave of emotion surged through the air. Fear, desperation, a whisper of something ancient. Lyra stepped closer, touching Zero's glow with her hand even though she felt the heat prick her skin. Zero shared another memory, not a vision this time, but a feeling. A hunting presence. A hunger for energy, for life, for light. Zero trembled, and the dome lights dimmed. Lyra whispered that the Empire would protect it, but Zero's glow responded with a soft pulse that felt like disagreement. He didn't believe anything could stop what was coming. Before Lyra could speak again, a sharp voice echoed behind them. It was Officer Dalen, one of the first who had wanted Zero locked away. His eyes were hard and full of anger. He said the Empire was wasting time. He said Zero brought the threat to them. He claimed the only way to save the Empire was to use Zero as a weapon, or destroy it before the enemy reached them. Lyra stepped between Zero and Dalen instantly. Her voice stayed firm, telling him to leave, but Dalen kept walking closer, his hand on his blaster. Zero backed away, glow trembling. The air around it heated. The dome lights flickered dangerously. Lyra shouted for Dalen to stop, but the officer raised his weapon anyway. Before he could aim, a sudden wave of force threw him backward. Zero shone bright with panic, pulsing energy through the dome. The metal floor vibrated. Glass panels hummed. Lyra grabbed Zero's arms, speaking fast and gentle, telling it to calm down, telling it she was safe, telling it no one would hurt it. Slowly, Zero's glow dimmed again. The pressure in the air faded. Dalen groaned on the floor, too shocked to stand. Security arrived, pulling Dalen away. Lyra helped Zero to steady itself. The being felt guilty. Its glow flickered weakly, sending a soft pulse of apology toward her. She shook her head, telling it that none of this was its fault. Zero leaned close to her, comforted by her voice. Commander Roll arrived soon after. He looked at the cracked floor and trembling lights. He looked at Lyra and Zero standing together, and he looked at the fear still on Dalen's face as the guards dragged him away. Raoul knew then that Zero could never be placed back among the general crew. Too many feared it now. Too many would try to act against it. He ordered a secure sanctuary chamber to be prepared safe, quiet, peaceful, and guarded only by people he trusted. Zero did not resist when they moved it. It floated beside Lyra silently, tired and dim. The sanctuary chamber was spherical and warm, filled with soft light and small floating platforms. It looked less like a prison and more like a peaceful rest space. Zero drifted inside and released a small pulse of relief. Lyra stayed with it, sitting on one of the platforms. Outside the chamber, the tension grew as the dark wave continued moving closer. Reports from the border outpost grew more disturbing. Entire small satellites went offline without warning. Signals vanished. Scout drones disappeared the moment they approached the edge of the wave. No explosions. No debris. Just nothing. That night cycle, Lyra stayed in the sanctuary while Zero rested. The being drifted slowly, its glow soft and low. She wondered if Zero could sleep, or dream, or fear in ways humans could not understand. Suddenly Zero's glow brightened sharply. It jolted awake, sending a pulse of shock through the room. Lyra stood up instantly, grabbing its arms again. Zero flashed a series of quick, emotional bursts via warning, urgency. Lyra tried to understand. Zero reached out its energy and projected a faint image into the air. The dark wave, but closer, much closer than before. Lyra felt a chill run through her entire body. The enemy that destroyed Zero's world would reach the Empire in days. Empire went into full alert the moment Lyra delivered Zero's warning. Alarm lights flashed through the long metal corridors. Crew members ran from station to station, powering shields, warming engines, and preparing evacuation routes. The commanders spoke in short, tight voices, trying not to let fear spread among the soldiers. But fear was already there, growing like a shadow nobody could outrun. Zero stayed in the sanctuary chamber, glowing weakly as Lyra watched over it. Every few minutes, Zero projected small pulses that showed the dark wave's movement. Each pulse revealed one thing clearly: the enemy was coming faster than anyone predicted. The wave was not drifting, it was hunting. Commander Roll entered the chamber, his face serious and heavier than before. He asked Zero gently if it could show him or anything that might help them understand how the wave worked. Zero floated forward, trembling with effort. A soft glow formed between its hands, shaping into a dim memory of its homeworld, bright and peaceful once. Then the image changed. The dark wave appeared, swallowing the sky, eating the light, breaking stars. Raoul watched silently, horror tightening across his features. He asked how Zero survived. Zero answered with a small pulse of emotion, pain, fear, running. It hadn't fought the darkness. It had escaped it. Raoul walked to the far corner of the room, thinking deeply. The enemy was not just a strong force. It was something beyond logic, beyond science. Something that fed on energy. Something that destroyed without leaving a trace. And it was heading toward the Empire's heart. Outside the sanctuary, panic spread quietly among the crew. Some whispered that they would all die. Others blamed Zero for bringing the danger closer. A few even tried to leave their posts until security forced them back. The Empire had fought many enemies, but this one was different. This one didn't negotiate. It didn't speak. Wouldn't even show itself. It just erased. Meanwhile, Lyra stayed close to Zero, trying to keep it calm. Zero's glow flickered more and more, showing fear for the first time, not just for itself, but for her. It projected a small Imagia wave consuming the command ship, then consuming Lyra. Lyra placed her hand inside the glow, telling Zero she wasn't afraid. She lied, of course, but she lied with kindness. Hours later, a deep alert voice echoed through the ship. The border sensors detected the first edge of the dark wave entering Empire territory. Raoul rushed out, ordering all ships to prepare defensive formations. Hundreds of vessels aligned into tight rows, shields raised, engines burning bright. From far away, they looked like tiny sparks facing an infinite wall of night. Inside the command deck, Raoul watched the screens. The dark wave moved like a giant shadow sliding silently across the stars. No shape, no eyes, no sound, just darkness swallowing light. He ordered a scout fleet to fire warning shots. Missiles flared out toward the wave, blazing bright trails. The missiles touched the edge of the darkness and vanished instantly. No explosion, no flash. Just gone gasps spread through the control room. Raoul clenched his fists. He ordered the main cannons to fire. Massive beams of burning energy shot through space, brighter than stars. They slammed into the darkness and disappeared without leaving even a flicker behind. It was like trying to fight the night with a candle. Lyra and Zero felt the shockwave of fear spreading through the ship. Zero suddenly burst into a strong glow, brighter than anything before. It projected a final memory, one it had never shown, its world's last stand. Hundreds of ships firing, thousands of weapons burning, cities collapsing, people screaming, and the dark wave swallowing everything without slowing. Zero's glow dimmed almost immediately after the vision. It drifted closer to Lyra, exhausted, pulsing weakly. Lyra understood what Zero was trying to say. The Empire could not destroy the wave. Not with weapons. Not with shields. Maybe not at all. Commander Raoul returned to the sanctuary chamber, breathing heavily. He asked Zero the hardest question he had ever spoken. How did your world fight it? Was there anything that hurt the darkness? Zero hesitated. It looked at Lyra, then at Raoul, then back at Lyra again. Slowly, painfully, it raised its hands and formed a small glowing shape. It was not a weapon, not a machine. It was Zero itself. Lyra's heart dropped. She understood. Zero was born from the same star energy the wave consumed. Zero was the only thing it didn't destroy instantly. Zero was the only thing that survived contact. Zero was the key. The wave could be stopped, but only if Zero faced it. Lyra felt her chest tighten. She begged Zero to think again, to try something else, anything else. But Zero floated closer, touching her hand with its warm glow. It showed her a soft pulse, gratitude, affection, peace. Zero was ready. Outside, the dark wave reached the outer fleet. The first row of ships vanished instantly, disappearing like dust blown away by the wind. Soldiers screamed overcomes before their signals cut off. The Empire had minutes, maybe less. Raoul stepped back, staring at Zero with a mixture of fear and hope. The whole Empire might depend on this one fragile being. Zero raised its hands and glowed brighter. The darkness was coming, and Zero was preparing to face it. The entire command ship shook as the dark wave consumed the outer line of the Empire's fleet. The alarms rang like a heartbeat that had lost its rhythm. Everyone could feel it. Now the cold pull of something impossible coming closer. People ran through the halls, shouting orders, sending messages to other ships, trying to stay calm even though the fear felt heavy in their chests. Zero floated in the center of the sanctuary chamber, glowing brighter than anyone had ever seen it before. Its light spread across the room like warm, soft fire, touching every wall, every metal surface, and finally reaching Lyra's face. She stood in front of it, arms slightly shaking, trying to be strong even though her eyes were filling with tears. Zero looked at her with a gentle pulse, a pulse that said goodbye without using a single word. Commander Raoul entered the chamber slowly. He felt the warmth too, but in his heart it hurt. He had started to believe Zero was more than a survivor, more than a danger, more than a mystery. Zero was alive in a way that touched people, even people who feared it. For one moment Raoul wished he had met the being in another world, Another time somewhere without a monster chasing it. The walls trembled again. The wave was close. Very close. Roll told Zero that a path was opening outside the ship, a direct line toward the darkness. If Zero could push its energy outward, if it could meet the wave before it reached the main fleet, maybe it would slow it, weaken it, or stop it completely. He did not know what would happen to Zero. He could not even promise survival, but Zero already understood. Zero rose gently from the floor, light swirling around its body. Lyra stepped forward and wrapped her arms around the glowing form. She didn't care that it burned her skin or that sparks of energy stung her arms. She held it like she would hold a frightened child, whispering again and again that it was not alone. Zero pulsed softly, surrounding her with a blanket of warmth, love, gratitude, trust. Then it slowly lifted upward, slipping from her arms like light drifting into the air. Lyra stepped back, wiping her tears with shaking hands. Roll nodded once, giving Zero the silent permission it waited for. Then the sanctuary doors opened. Zero drifted through the long corridor, its light shining so brightly that soldiers stopped in place and watched silently. Some bowed their heads. Others touched their chests in quiet respect. No one tried to stop it. No one doubted it now. Zero was going to do something no human could do. The launch bay doors opened, revealing the dark wave outside, an endless wall of shadow moving slowly but powerfully through space. It blocked the stars. It swallowed the light. Even the bright lamps of the ship dimmed when the darkness came into view. Zero floated forward. The moment its glow touched the vacuum of space, the darkness reacted. A ripple moved across the wave, slow but sharp, like a shadow flinching. Zero raised both hands, its entire body burning with star-bright energy. A beam of pure light burst outward, striking the darkness head-on. The impact shook the ship. Everyone watched through the observation windows. The dark wave, for the first time in its existence, slowed. It didn't vanish, but it stopped advancing. Zero pushed closer, glowing brighter and brighter, forcing its energy into the shadow like it was fighting gravity itself. Inside the ship, Raul gripped the rail so tightly his knuckles went white. Lyra pressed her hands to the glass, whispering Zero's name again and again. Light and darkness clashed outside, swirling like a storm. The darkness pushed back, trying to swallow Zero. But Zero did not move. It held the line, burning brighter with every second. Then Zero did something no one expected. It opened itself completely. Its body expanded into a brilliant sphere of light, a small star forming in front of the dark wave. The light exploded outward, pushing the wave back, back, back. For the first time, the wave shrank, curling inward like smoke caught in a strong wind. The darkness tried to resist, but Zero's energy only grew hotter and stronger, until there was one final burst. A silent flash filled the entire sector, stretching across space like sunrise after a long night. When the light faded, the dark wave was gone, completely gone. Silence fell across the ship. Radar screens blinked with empty readings. No threat, no wave, nothing. The crew cheered, sobbed, hugged each other. Commander Roll closed his eyes and took the deepest breath he had taken in years. The Empire was safe. They had survived. But Lyra kept staring at the empty space. Zero was not there. The glow, the small figure, the warm pulse. Her heart broke quietly. She whispered Zero's name one more time, hoping somehow it would answer. But the stars only shimmered back at her. Raul walked to her side. He placed a hand on her shoulder, saying softly that Zero's light lived on in every person that being saved. Lyra nodded slowly, wiping her tears. She knew Raul was right. Zero had given everything to protect them because Zero had finally found a place where it felt understood, a place where someone cared. Days later, the Empire honored Zero with the highest memorial any being had ever received. They placed a small glowing crystal in the observation dome, a gift from Zero's energy, found floating near the ship after the explosion. It flickered gently, warm and soft. Lyra visited it every night. Sometimes the crystal pulsed faintly, just enough to make her smile, as if Zero was still there, watching the stars with her.